Hello, this is Juliana Sassman, and this is my final presentation for Art, Architecture, and Urbanism, Fall 2010, with Professor Gediminas Urbanus. I'm going to take you through a series of images and an explanation of my research this semester, and build my project through those images and through the scientific research that I have compiled here. And throughout the presentation, each of these chapters is going to become another layer in the reading of the project until the final chapters, when you will see some visualizations of how and where that final action will be composed along the Charles River. So first, my project starts with the chapter Water as Memorial. And here I'm interested in looking at how water has been used architecturally to create places of memorial and remembrance. And a couple of the precedents that I pulled together here are the Vietnam Memorial by Maya Lin in Washington, D.C. Then the memorial at Ground Zero in New York City. There's a water cube where you can walk underneath the ground and see the water raining down. And then the constructed river that is in Hyde Park and is a tribute to Princess Diana in London. And I'm interested in looking at water as memorial first as a way to recontextualize how we're thinking about the Charles River and how water has been used as rivers in other places. And then I looked at how water is used in ritual. And basically, water is used in every major religion in the world in some form as a part of the religious ceremonies and religious ritual. And so here I've looked at specifically how water is used in Christianity as the method of rebirth and christening and cleaning of the soul and being reborn. And then looking at how the Ganges is used in India as a site of pilgrimage. And finally, how water is used outside of mosques traditionally is also a place to cleanse before going inside the mosque. Then I began looking at water and how it can create impossible places, or how impossible places are related to water. Thinking about ways to change what the experience is at the Charles River, or take those rituals and memorials and bring them into a new context as impossible places. So I looked at the installation at PS1. That's this inhabitable pool. And then an artist who rode his bike on top of the Charles River here in Boston. And this is a real photo, it's not photoshopped. And finally, this ad is by a major bank, HSBC, and I like the way that they completely changed the perspective and the proportions of what is happening underwater. Then this is a project by Cildo Mireles in 1983. This is installed inside of a museum, and actually it's made without using any water, but creates a really water-like environment that I thought was very beautiful and really surreal in its creation. And another project by the same artist, where this long dock is sitting over fabricated water. It's I think it's paper. It's definitely also not water. And finally, this is by the sound artist Susan Phillips, and she's created another impossible place by the riverside underneath this bridge on a pedestrian walkway, where she sings and projects her voice and uses the acoustics of that underneath space to create a really strange, ethereal, new place that is using the acoustic qualities of the water. So at the midterm, I proposed something called submerged space, and this was a first attempt at how to create an ethereal, impossible place along the river that embodied these qualities of ritual and memorial and sanctuary, and a way to re-understand our relationship to the Charles River by inhabiting a space underneath the Harvard Bridge, and one that connects us to the water in really different ways from the running and jogging paths that are along the river right now. And so there's an existing language for occupying the river, which is these huge docks that float on the water. So I wanted to use that language and move into this more ethereal zone. So I proposed this underneath projected water space. So for the final project, I'm moving beyond that first concept about the river with the floating dock and inhabiting the space underneath the bridge. I wanted to create something that is more directly built from a line of research on how to create a sacred space or ritual space, and using the method of research that is most prominent at MIT, which is scientific, linear, objective, and cataloging what the elements are that could create an ethereal space that, in this case, is much lighter than what I had originally proposed. Instead of building an enormous dock that goes underneath the bridge, bringing three elements together in a light way, so that you might not have a physical marker that this space is one of the sacred spaces along the Charles, but that once you get near the space, you can understand what the elements are that are coming together and move yourself into the place of experiencing the elements. So I wanted to start by building from the senses, and I'm using sight, hearing, and breathing. So if I'm going to build this in a scientific manner, I wanted to look at the actual organs and the exact type of manipulation that I want to perform in these spaces. So I'm looking at the lungs, the ears, and the eyes. And my purpose for creating these spaces along the Charles are to create pockets of calm. So to engineer an environment that can calm your physical systems of your body and take you into a place that is completely different from the type of space that's at MIT and the type of environment. So starting with the lungs and with breathing, I looked specifically at what the 5 categories of clinical anxiety are. Anxiety works in a lot of different ways, but these are the main categories: generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive, post-traumatic stress, specific phobia, and social phobia. And I thought that anxiety was the most important kind of clinical avenue to look into, because anxiety is what fuels a lot of the production at MIT. So there's this bell curve that tracks what your optimal and most productive work zone is. So anxiety is a distortion of what is generally a very positive attribute. So manic, working, focus, and production are all pushed at MIT. But once those attributes get exaggerated, they become these anxiety disorders, which are very modern disorders and are talked about specifically today with hyper amounts of media and bombardment and constant contact and cell phones, all these things. But here I want to look just specifically at how anxiety relates to work production, and I see this as specifically what's related to the MIT Institute, and that if these spaces are engineered calm, they need to work with anxiety specifically. So, and there's a lot of research around how your breathing rate and your lungs are related to control of anxiety. That your breathing resting rate should be a breath every 5 seconds, or 12 breaths in a minute. And that the hippocampus is connected to a nerve that's connected to your lungs and helps you regulate anxiety through breathing. and also how breathing techniques, specifically deep breathing, is a method to help people come out of acute anxiety attacks, especially related to post-traumatic stress disorder, which here in this article is highlighted as something that is more and more common in contemporary society, that they're seeing post-traumatic stress as something that's triggered by everyday events, not even just the Vietnam War. Something is how we've understood it historically. So I looked at rates of breathing and deep breathing methods. So what I'm suggesting here with this series of images of the light is that calm can be engineered to address breathing and heart rate through a simple mechanism of the light that suggests a breathing tempo that can bring your heart rate down. And that by looking at these signals, we tend to try and match the environment that's around us. So one of the key elements in these engineered calm places would be a breathing light that instructs you on how to lower your breath rate and bring your heart rate down. So in this presentation, I'd like to suggest that we all concentrate on how we're breathing as we go through the rest of these slides, and consciously engineer your own breath rate and your own heart rate to come down while we're watching the rest of this. The next sense of calm.